Once upon a time, on a beautiful spring day, there lived a little bee named Tiny Bee in a garden full of flowers. Every morning, Tiny Bee would wake up early, collect nectar from the flowers, and return to the hive. One day, Tiny Bee saw a very big and bright flower in the farthest corner of the garden. Thinking that the nectar from this flower would be very sweet and plentiful, Tiny Bee flew over to it immediately. But, unfortunately, when Tiny Bee arrived, there was a big bear already there. Tiny Bee was scared at first, but gathered courage and said, "Hello, bear. I am Tiny Bee. Can I collect some nectar from this flower?" The big bear, with a sweet smile, said, "Of course, Tiny Bee. I can share it with you." Tiny Bee and Big Bear started collecting the nectar from the flower together. Tiny Bee buzzed its wings quickly and dived into the flower, collecting the nectar. Big Bear carefully held the flower, helping Tiny Bee. After the nectar collecting task was finished, Tiny Bee thanked Big Bear and returned to the hive. The other bees in the hive were very happy to see the plentiful and sweet nectar Tiny Bee had brought. They all worked together to make a big pot of honey from this nectar. The next day, Tiny Bee took some honey from the hive and went to Big Bear. "This honey was made thanks to your help." "Thank you, Big Bear," said Tiny Bee. Big Bear's eyes sparkled as he took the honey and said, "Thank you, Tiny Bee. I am very glad to have met you." From that day on, Tiny Bee and Big Bear always collected nectar together and became good friends. The flowers in the garden became even more beautiful and radiant as they witnessed their friendship. Tiny Bee and Big Bear learned the importance of sharing and friendship and lived happily ever after.